We did a lot last year to start reversing the damage that President Trump and all of us inherited from the Biden years. The high inflation, the high interest rates, so many rules and regulations that were targeted to hurt families, to increase costs for families, that we have been working to reverse. President Trump's done a lot of things through executive action. We worked closely with the president on things like the Working Families Tax Cuts, other big bills, over 20 CRAs, Congressional Review Acts, reversing costly, ridiculous Biden-era regulations so that we can lower costs for families. And we're going to continue. We have a lot more work to do. We talked about this yesterday very extensively. President Trump was fully engaged with our members yesterday, as he has been this entire first year. It's not even a full year in office. And yet we have seen an incredibly engaged president who is working with a Republican House and Senate and Congress to fight for the American people who had been left behind by the previous administration. We talked about what we can do to keep lowering costs in areas like energy, where in many states are now finally seeing less than $2 a gallon gasoline. That's more money in the pockets of families. Working on lowering health care costs, where Democrats only want to give money to big insurance companies. President Trump talked about letting families have the decision on how to spend that money. Not the insurance companies, but families controlling where the money goes, and if they can get a better plan for themselves and their family, they should be able to make those decisions, as he's done other things to lower prescription drug prices. We're going to keep working on those ideas. We had all of our committee chairmen talking about all the things that are going to be teed up, things that are already coming through committee, lowering housing costs, so many other things that we're going to be doing. And then every member was able to give their input. And members gave a lot of really good input on looking at an agenda that's going to be continued to focus on lowering costs for families and getting this country back on track as we celebrate 250 years of American independence. It's something to be proud of. But democracy is not easy. Democracy takes work. It takes engagement from the public. As we go into an election next, November, later this year, the country needs to stay engaged in fighting for the kind of reforms that we've been able to deliver so that we can keep doing what it takes to get this country back on track. We are excited about this opportunity. The margin's going to be as slim as it ever has been. And you'll get to report every day about, gee whiz, with a one-vote majority, can they do this and will they pass that? Might as well cue up the stories you wrote last year, because you had a lot of the same stories. Gee whiz, there's no way they'll be able to pass the reconciliation bill until it passed, because we came together as Republicans to go deliver for those American families who are counting on us. While Democrats wake up every day, and we see it with Venezuela, some of the same Democrats who just years ago were saying, when is somebody going to do something about Maduro? And President Trump finally does and brings him to justice for all the horrible things he's done to kill Americans. And those same Democrats are then saying, how dare the president do it? Because Democrats have shown all they care about every day is they wake up in the morning and they just want to oppose what Donald Trump does, no matter what it is. When he's delivering on the promises the American people elected him to carry through on, all the Democrats want to do is obstruct and fight and vote no. And if that's what they want to do as a party, just to be a lost in the wilderness, far-left, radical, socialist, Marxist party, then let them stay lost in the wilderness. We're going to keep fighting and delivering for those families who are counting on us. They'd love to see Democrats work with this president, but if the Democrats want to continue moving towards the Mondami wing of their party, which is where they're headed, and defend a dictator who was literally letting narco-terrorists run his country, then we're going to continue. Think about this. Hundreds last year. Hundreds of thousands of Americans died because of drugs that came into this country through people like Maduro. And President Trump said, we're going to stop those deaths from happening. We care about those families. Every family who has seen loss from fentanyl death or cocaine or heroin overdose. President Trump did something about that to defend Americans here at home, and he will continue to do that on every front. And we're going to keep delivering with President Trump for those same families who should not struggle anymore. And it's going to be a very busy year. It's going to be a year of unified Republicans delivering for hard-working American families. And the man leading us through that effort is our Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Well, good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year, and welcome back to the second session of the 119th Congress. We woke up yesterday, as it's been mentioned this morning, to very tragic news. Our dear friend and colleague, Doug LaMalfa, passed away unexpectedly at the age of 65. We were on the way into our gathering, our retreat that we had planned for policy, planning, strategy purposes. And I quite literally found out about it on the way in, and it really shook us. Doug was a great man. He really was truly a great man. He's a lifelong resident of Northern California and deeply loved the people he represented. He was a fierce fighter, as you've heard, for his state's its vast natural resources and its beauty, and the people he represented. And there are stories coming out from his constituents about how dedicated he was to the people he served, and how in that vast area of Northern California that he covered, he would drive hundreds of miles to go meet with just a handful of constituents, and people would ask him about the wisdom of being on the road so much. And he said, I represent them just as much as I do the people in the big city, and they deserve to have their rep. And we just love that spirit about him. I was on the phone yesterday with his beloved wife, Jill, who's now a widow, and they had 4 children, as was mentioned, and Jill is in as good a spirits as you could imagine, having just had this tragic loss, and she was with him, right before he passed, and she has great comfort, though, in knowing the blessed assurance, as we say in the Christian church, that she knows where he is, and we're comforted by her comfort in that. We're praying for them, and we're going to miss him dearly. I told her that Doug was, he's one of the most respected people in this institution, not just because of his selfless service and what he brought to it, but the way that he dealt with others and dealt with all of us. And I told her just a brief reflection that came to mind. I was on the phone with her yesterday. A few years ago, I was the vice chairman of the House Republican Conference, and one of the jobs of the vice chairman is to amplify the message on the floor. And so we try to fill the floor time, and I would sponsor these special order hours, and I would try to recruit members to come, sometimes late at night, and use that time effectively and advance our message. And Doug LaMalfa was the most faithful member always, and was to the day of his death. Blake Moore is now the vice chair and told the same story this morning, but I told his wife, Jill, last night, I said, I remember this one particular night, I think session had been canceled for the following day, and everybody jumped on airplanes and went home, and everybody canceled their RSVP for the floor, and Doug showed up. He showed up. He always did. And he and I think, were the only two that spoke that night and tried to fill the hour, and we were done. I walked off the floor, and it's like a ghost town there late at night like that, and I looked up at the big guy and put my arm on his shoulder. I said, Doug, thanks, man, but why'd you do this? You didn't have to do it. And he looked at me so serious and put his big hand on my chest, and he said, because I believe in this country, I believe in our cause, and I believe in you. And he said, we have to fill this time to tell the American people what we're doing. And I love that commitment about him, and we all did. Tom McClintock is a colleague of his from California, and they've served together for a long time. And Tom told me yesterday, I don't think he'd mind me repeating this, but he said, I think Doug LaMalfa was the kindest man I ever knew. And he said, y'all know McClintock, he's real serious. He said, I'm not saying one of the kindest. I'm saying the kindest man I ever knew. That's a high praise, so we'll miss him. In addition to this beginning, the second session of the 119th Congress, it's also, as you know, January 1st marked the beginning of our 250th year, the semi-quincentennial, or as we like to call it, the supercentennial. And it is going to be a big year for America, and we're excited about that. The America 250 Committee kicked off with an epic firework display on the National Mall a couple nights ago to commemorate the 250 years of American excellence. All 50 states, of course, will follow with their own events around the country this year, and of course, it will all culminate in the nation's birthday on July 4th. We have a lot to celebrate. We're still an experiment in self-governance. There is no guarantee of how long this grand experiment will last, but we are very bullish on America. And we talked about it this morning with all the House Republicans gathered with this while we're mourning Doug's death, we also have this anticipation and excitement about what's ahead of us, and we understand the magnitude of the history that's upon us here and the responsibility that everybody in this building has to continue this great republic, and we're going to keep it. We began our fateful year yesterday, as I mentioned, with we called it the Agenda 250 Policy Forum. It was very efficacious, very productive. Nearly every member of the conference attended. Very, very beneficial time that we had together, and the team behind me is ready to hit the ground running to continue delivering on our mandate, and all of our members are committed to that. There's a great sense of unity in the House Republican Conference. I think I can say unlike I've ever seen before. Resolve, locked arm in arm, understanding what's ahead of us, what we need to continue to accomplish, and we're bullish about doing that. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said a lot over the holiday about what we're to anticipate in the new year. He's echoing some of the things that we have been saying and feeling, what our constituents are already beginning to feel. His quote, though, in one of these interviews, he said, 2025 merely set the table. The feast and the banquet will be in 2026. It's going to be a blockbuster year. And I think he's exactly right. Our working families tax cut, the big, beautiful bill, those provisions will hit American households and wallets, and you're going to see all boats begin to rise. And while Democrats continue to wither, Republicans will continue to demonstrate that we are the only team capable of restoring American greatness. We don't just talk about it, we do it. And it's not, it's our legislation, and if it was not for these bills, American families, let's not forget, would have experienced the largest, most crushing tax increase in the history of the country in 2026. All those Trump-era tax cuts would have expired, and we'd have had $5 trillion of taxes just descend upon that weight on all families in this country. We stopped that, and we turned it back the other direction. Thanks to the working families tax cuts, that will be avoided completely. All American families are going to receive the largest tax refund they ever have, and that all begins very soon here. Every Democrat, remember this too, voted for record tax increases, while every Republican voted for record tax cuts and refunds to the people. And we hope everybody remembers that simple fact the next time the Democrats start talking about trying to make life more affordable and all this. There's only one party actually doing that. It's the Republican Party. I want to make one more point about our meeting yesterday. Both House Republicans and House Democrats, as you might have noted, held closed-door conference-wide meetings this week. House Republicans discussed how we can continue to drive down costs for working families, make our streets and neighborhoods safe again, and restore American dominance on all fronts. And meanwhile, by contrast, what were the House Democrats doing? Well, they held an emergency meeting to determine how to think about the successful ousting of an illegitimate narco-terrorist dictator who killed dissidents, poisoned Americans, and plunged 90% of his country into abject poverty. Nicolas Maduro, who the Biden administration placed a $25 million bounty on, is no longer terrorizing the people of Venezuela anymore. I'm so grateful for Congressman Jimenez, who came in to share his perspective as a South Floridian and Miami person, resident. They understand this as acutely as anybody. Because the action was taken by President Trump, Democrats are apoplectic. They claim they didn't like Maduro either, but because President Trump took action, as was noted earlier, they're now critical of it. They're going to cut off their own nose to spite their face. This is the bills, 3 more in that package. We have plans to do the next 3 next week, and then we'll continue. And I want to say this is bipartisan effort. You got both parties working on this, and that's to be applauded. Our appropriators worked very hard through the Christmas holiday to have these bills prepared on our return. They worked through the holiday, and my team, all of us, we worked. We didn't take any time off to make sure this would happen, and we're grateful for all that work. These 3 bills spend less than if we had advanced another continuing resolution. They deliver critical priorities for House Republicans' districts, and they continue to advance President Trump's America First agenda. With just 3 weeks to go until the funding deadline, we're very hopeful, very bullish that this package of bills is going to continue our good momentum towards completing annual appropriations with regular order without a bloated, wasteful omnibus spending bill. And I'll close with that and take your questions. But I told the House Republicans just now, I said, don't lose sight of this great Christmas blessing. We did not have a Christmas omnibus nightmare situation for 3 years in a row now. Why? Because Republicans take our responsibility seriously. Yeah, go ahead.
When President Trump has talked about military action in Greenland, you said that there didn't need to be military notification or that this wasn't a war act in Venezuela. If there is military action in Greenland, would Congress need authorization? And also, would Congress need authorization for need to have power of the purse for control of oil in Venezuela?
Okay, let me address them in turn. We're not at war with Greenland. We have no intention of being it. We have no reason to be at war with Greenland, okay? Everybody knows there's geopolitical and strategic importance of that landmass, and that's what everyone has talked about. By the way, this is not just President Trump. I think this goes back to Truman. Like many presidents have acknowledged the strategic placement of Greenland and how important that could be to our country, and the president's talked about that, rare earth minerals and other things. They're talking about diplomatic channels for this, okay? There's lots been said about it, but I know this personally because I talked to the governor of my state a couple of days ago, Jeff Landry, who has been appointed to be our person there, our individual who would go and help with these negotiations. So that is in America's interest. It is not, I think it's not against Greenland's interest. There's a lot of thoughtful discussion to be had there, and that's what we expect is going to happen. So all this stuff about military action and all that, I don't think it's, I don't even think that's a possibility. I don't think anybody's seriously considering that. And in the Congress, we're certainly not. Okay, so wait, with regard to Venezuela, we have to see what plays out. I went to the Gang of Eight briefing. It was very detailed, as even the Democrats who are grumbling about some of this, who were in that briefing, will attest. They have said as much. It was military precision. Our armed forces do an extraordinary job. General Kane is an extraordinary leader for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Another reason you should sleep well at night. Secretary Hegseth, great job at Defense, at Department of War, Department of War doing all this. And Secretary Rubio was there, Attorney General Bondi, CIA Director Ratcliffe. I mean, we had everybody. And they went through the details and they explained the rationale and why everything happened as it did. I don't think anybody could have any complaint or question about that. And I expect they're going to give almost that same level of information in a larger auditorium. And I think members of Congress are going to understand this fully. What happens next? There are plans and procedures in place, but it's impossible to know exactly how it's all going to play out. We have to see how that works. I trust the people who are in charge of this. I'm told, and the President has mentioned, and Secretary Rubio has mentioned, that our American oil companies will be involved in getting that infrastructure back up, and that will have a lot to do with how all this sorts out. But we don't know the details of that yet, and I certainly don't. The House has not been apprised of it because I think it is in the works right now. This has just happened. This is a seismic development. This just happened. Some of this is unprecedented. It is not a regime change. I want to emphasize that. It is a change of the actions of the regime. As you know, they have an interim president now, and so we're not boots on the ground. We're not occupying Venezuela. We haven't declared war on Venezuela. We went to get a criminal who had been indicted in a U.S. court under our due process, and we're going to bring them to justice on American soil. We should applaud that. It's going to stop the killing of millions of people. Yeah.
Just to follow up, because you say that the military action is not going to happen. So then, is it responsible for the White House to continue to raise the specter of military action? They said very explicitly.
I've spoken to the question. I'm not going to take 1,000 gotcha questions this morning trying to pit me against the White House. It is. I've said I can't be more clear than I have been on this. I've given lengthy statements on it. You know where I stand. You know where the House stands. We're going to get a briefing today, and then we'll see how it develops. So everybody relax. Yes.
Last question. On that note, though, did Secretary Rubio tell you all in the briefing that the U.S. plans to buy?
Look, I was.
Also, if that is the case, first of all, how does that square with NATO? And then how does that square with the overwhelming message from Americans in the election that they care about the economy and issues here at home?
Okay, look, it is an America first priority to look to our strategic and national defense initiatives and what would be advantageous to us. Greenland offers a lot of that. I've mentioned this already. Obviously, the strategic importance of its geographical placement, but also the rare earth minerals that are there and everything else. That is directly in line with commitments made on the campaign trail by President Trump and all of us to seek America's interest first. Now, that said, does that mean we're going to go send troops into Greenland and take it over? No. I mean, they only have, 40, 50,000 people there. This is not a thing, okay? Did Marco say something like that? I think he did. I mean, it was over a 2-hour meeting in the Gang of Eight, and I think he did make a comment, but I think he did it with a smile. He was trying. I took that as a joke. He was trying to be humorous about it, okay? Do we know whether there's going to be some sort of financial arrangement in these negotiations? I mean, none of us know, but Marco did not go into the Gang of Eight and say, we're going to buy Greenland. That's not what happened, okay? Marco Rubio was a long-serving member in Congress, in the Senate. He is very close colleagues and friends with most of us in the Gang of Eight who were in that room, and we spoke as old friends and colleagues, and it was a relaxed setting because we all know one another, and everybody in that room knows that Marco Rubio is an honest broker, and in my view, the most highly qualified person. He is a gift to America right now with his insights, particularly on these issues, Western Hemisphere and Venezuela and all the rest. So he is one that's highly respected in that room, and even when you disagree with some of the play calls, they can't dispute anything he said. And look, everybody understood the context of that conversation. It was obviously supposed to be off the record because we're in the skiff and it was highly classified. But there were a lot of things said back and forth that you should not be running with as headlines as if it's some sort of new U.S. policy. They wouldn't have broken it in front of Chuck Schumer in the Gang of Eight. Okay, well, last one, yeah.
The president, as you saw, said that he is going to get 50 million barrels of oil or something from Venezuela. Does the president have the authority to unilaterally seize oil from Venezuela and then use the money from the sale of that oil as he sees fit, as he said he's going to do?
I hear Congressman Jimenez over my shoulder, who's the world's expert on all this, saying that is sanctioned oil, okay? And I'm not going to get up here and tell you the details of all these developments because it's still being developed. There are a lot of ideas. There's some brainstorming being done out loud by all sorts of people, many of whom are not even authorized to have these conversations. I would not run with too many of these headlines right now, okay? I'm telling you that all of this is developing right now. I am very confident we have steady hands at the wheel, and then this will be figured out. So stay tuned. Thank you all.
Do you have a date for State of the Union?
I believe State of the Union is going to be...
That's important to say. Get back to the podium.
You got the breaking news with the speaker.
I think the date, this is off the top of my head, I think it's like maybe February 24th we're looking at, okay? It'll be soon. We were looking at some alternative dates and trying to figure out what works, but I think that's the week that we're in session and in mid to late February, and that would be the preference of the White House. But just wait for further development, but I wanted you to know it's coming. It's coming.
Are you concerned with the death of Mr. LaMalfa and what happened, obviously, with Marjorie Taylor Greene resigning? Is your majority in jeopardy? Is it so tenuous that the House could flip during this Congress?
No. Can I give you my honest reflection on this? Okay. As was noted earlier, we've been working with it. Sorry, I didn't want to do all this. We have been working with a razor-thin majority since I became Speaker. And as you know, at many points in the last year, we had a 1 or 2 vote majority at any given moment. The passing of Doug was a shock to us because we'll miss him as an individual. But this is the group that has demonstrated over and over and over and over that we defy expectations and make history. Look, we do this. It's a very simple thing, okay? This is not the acumen of Speaker Johnson or necessarily all the teamwork of the Republican conference. This is because, I'm going to be very honest with you, I'm a person of deep faith, and we trust in God. That is our national motto, and we act upon that. I put up one slide this morning at the end of conference, and it's a favorite that I have on my phone, and I share it with everybody, and it's an image of the Red Sea party, okay? And some of you guys are going to mock me for this. But look, we just came upon the 250th anniversary. We just started the 250th anniversary of the greatest nation in the history of the world. Our founders and the framers of the Constitution, the founders, including George Washington, the father of our country, used to speak openly about his belief, his solemn belief, that it was divine providence that allowed us to create this great country. I believe that is the secret of our genius. It is the reason we have become the most successful, most powerful, most prosperous, most benevolent nation in the history of the world. And we do well to remember that, and we do. And I believe that God's not done with America yet. Can I put it to you that way, Chad? God's not done with America yet, and it's up to the people in this building to keep this great republic going for another 250 years. And
One flu session away, one flu season away from losing the majority.
none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. None of us. We don't know what's going to happen. The Bible says you don't worry about tomorrow. You focus on today. Today has enough trouble as its own. We do that every day. We're going to keep delivering. Those seas are going to part when necessary. We're going to keep this great republic. And I know I'm going to be maligned for saying that, and I don't care, because that my worldview is we give God the glory. I believe God has blessed America. I believe it is in Him who we trust, and I think we do well to remind everybody of that. I'm not worried about the numbers. I don't get up in apprehension or anxiety in any day. I get up every day with hope and anticipation to see what God's going to do for our great country. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Left and back. How's that? Like more left? Okay. Do you need a mic check?
office, and David Cicilline, then Congress member, graciously let us in. We locked the door and watched TV and realized pretty soon afterwards that Donald Trump had incited this mob to attack the Capitol. So David Cicilline, I, and Jamie Raskin wrote an article for impeachment. It passed the House on a bipartisan basis. 57 U.S. senators on a bipartisan basis voted to convict, the highest in U.S. history. And Capitol Police valiantly fought against this mob and protected the Capitol and protected us. That is a stain that Donald Trump will never be able to wipe away, ever. And 3 years from now, we're going to make sure that the truth will be even louder and that the American people understand exactly what happened.
Thanks, Vice Chair. Questions? Michael?
Happy New Year, Mr.
Happy New Year.
President Trump spoke to House Republicans yesterday at their policy retreat and said that GOP has to win the midterms, or if Democrats will impeach him again, they'll find a reason to impeach me, get impeached. Unquote. I want to get your reaction to that. Obviously, you all are focused on healthcare affordability, but what does it say that the president's focus on keeping the majority is to avoid what he says would be a third impeachment if Democrats were to win the majority?
This is no surprise to the American public. Donald Trump is about one thing: Donald Trump. That's all this is about. Everything he does is about him, his name, and his family, and how they benefit from it. He's not talking about why the American people would benefit if House Republicans kept a state in power. He's talking about how House Democrats will hurt him. We don't care. We're going to continue to offer oversight and accountability to him and to anyone who serves in that office, because we're the United States House of Representatives, and House Democrats, House Republicans have been unwilling and unable to offer that level of oversight to date. And so we're going to have to do it. The American public might have to wait a year to see that, but we're willing to do that if we're privileged enough to be in the majority. But it says a lot about Donald Trump. He's not concerned about the costs that people face. He's not concerned about specific policies. It's just about consolidating power and how this affects him. We're not concerned about that. We're going to continue to focus on how we help people, how we have limited opportunities, make the best, as the Vice Chair said, make the best of where we are right now. But the fact that we are in the minority and we're able to force votes on overriding presidential vetoes later this week, on delivering health care benefits to people, those are significant wins, and we're going to continue to keep doing that all the way through November. And if we're given an opportunity to lead the American people, we'll see what that agenda looks like.
Really quickly, some of your members have introduced or proposed articles of impeachment in response to certain actions that the president has taken last year. Do you think if that occurs later on in the year that will muddle the message that you just gave?
It's not something that the leadership team is focused on. Members are going to represent, the viewpoints of their district, and we respect that. But that's not where our focus is. Our focus is on providing support to the American people, lowering the costs that they face, and if we are in a position, given an opportunity to lead, we'll show the American public exactly what that looks like. That's our focus, and anybody who gets in the way, including Donald Trump and Russ Vought and the administration, will be on the end of that, accountability and oversight. But that's all we're focused on right now. Nick and Mariana.
Appropriations question. As you look at the defense appropriations bill, do you think there should be language included on military action in Venezuela or elsewhere?
I think there should be opportunities for amendments and input on Venezuela, on Greenland, on Cuba, on the Western Hemisphere countries that the president keeps talking about. I think that should be part of the discussion. Those should be given amendment votes, but this is one of the most closed Congresses I think that we've ever seen. This House, they don't believe in open rules. They don't believe in amendment debates and discussions. So I'd be shocked if we get that. But I think that's an opportunity that we should consider. But I think more broadly, the American people are asking tough questions. Are American service members going to be in harm's way? Is Venezuela the only regime change that is on the mind of the president? These are all good questions, and it's on us to ask these, even when Republican leadership won't. As you just saw in the briefing, they continually want to peddle the theories of the administration when the American people are just asking reasonable questions. And I think it's on us to deliver some answers. Mariana.
I wanted to follow up to Michael's question. There have been a few House Democrats who have called for impeaching Trump over Venezuela. There are other Democrats who rightfully are wondering what's going to happen next, and could that lead to impeachable offenses, not just on Venezuela, potential talks of invading Greenland. I know you just said that that's not the conversation or the position right now of House Democratic leaders, but could you all reach a point where those calls become louder, and how would leadership manage that potentially? Because we've seen impeachment votes happen, and they do take up time, do take time away from your message and the goal of kind of win back the majority. Would it be seen as a waste of time?
This is a lawless president who doesn't believe in norms or rules, and so it would not surprise any of us if he continued down a path that should lead to repercussions. But the end of the day, right now, House Republicans and Senate Republicans are not going to offer that oversight and accountability to the executive. And so we need to live in the reality that we are in. We need to speak to the issues that the American public cares about, which is, in this realm, we can ask tough questions and we should demand answers from the administration. But there are limited tools that we have here. I know that that's not popular among everyone, but that's the reality of the situation. Now, when we are in the majority, we will continue to ask tough questions, and we will have more tools to use. But in the meantime, we should be focused on what the American people want to see, what questions we have of the administration, how we can deliver for the American people on discharge petitions and veto overrides and the limited opportunities that we may have, while setting the groundwork for an affirmative agenda that we should stand for as Democrats, and robust accountability and oversight to the Trump administration when we're given an opportunity to lead. Yeah.
With regards to Venezuela, do you think that some of the rhetoric that you and leadership seems to be pushing, which is overwhelmingly critical and skeptical, is that helpful to some of your South Florida members whose own constituents might feel very differently about what's happening in Venezuela and maybe supportive of the action?
Yeah, I think Democrats continue to look at this representing their constituents, and some constituencies are going to be more diverse than others, and we respect that. This is the broad mosaic that we talk about within the delegation. But I think every member of the Democratic caucus understands, number one, that Nicolas Maduro was an illegitimate leader. He's a dictator, and we don't lose a lot of sleep about him not being in office. However, we are concerned about what the path is ahead. Every Democrat has concerns about what day 2, day 4, day 6 looks like here, and the administration has not offered any plans, or maybe they have. They've just offered like 12 plans on what that looks like moving forward. That's where Democrats are. Now, we're having conversations with stakeholders and ranking members on what war powers resolutions might be coming in order to discuss this and put checks on the administration. I think Democrats should support that and will support that. And we'll navigate those member conversations that we have with interested stakeholders and folks on the Foreign Affairs Committee and Armed Services Committee, Intel Committee. All of these members, should be part of that discussion, including members in Florida. Cassie.
Two questions for you. First, I'd like to start with today being the anniversary of the LA wildfires. Congress still has not acted on the governor's $34 billion request for disaster aid. You've been outspoken about the fact that it needs to get done. House Speaker Mike Johnson has indicated he won't do any sort of appropriating or ask appropriators to move on this without direction from the White House. What's your message to Californians who feel like they've been lost in all of this and that they've become a political pawn to this administration?
Yeah, I think Californians are rightfully frustrated. I'll defer to the vice chair in a minute here because his district is adjacent to some of the affected areas as well. But I really appreciate the work of George Whitesides and Judy Chu have done in representing their communities. I think Americans, not just in California, but Americans all across this country should be shocked, and they should be saddened that the Trump administration is viewing disaster assistance as a red state and a blue state issue. And that's exactly what they're doing. The vice chair and I have been part of efforts, bipartisan efforts with other California Republicans in order to send letters to the administration and let them know what's at stake and what California needs. California should not be treated unlike Texas and North Carolina when it comes to floods and disasters. We're one country, and that's how we should be treated. This president doesn't believe in that. This president doesn't believe in treating blue states the same as red states when it comes to natural disasters, and it's a terrible precedent to set, and House Republicans and many of our Republican colleagues seem content with that, and that's deeply frustrating, and that's not how the process should work. But we're going to continue to advocate for Southern Californians and for any American who's going through tragedy that deserves the attention and support of the federal government.
Last term, Chairman Aguilar and I voted for disaster aid for red and purple states like Oklahoma, North Carolina, and we didn't ask, should we vote for this because it's going to red and purple states? We voted for it because we're Americans, and this aid was helping Americans. I've never seen any administration until the Trump administration simply decide to help Americans based on what state they happen to live in. And if you're even going to take that approach, I just note that Southern California has more Republicans than a number of red states. And so Trump is actually hurting Republicans in Southern California who were affected by the wildfire disasters. I was at the meeting when Donald Trump came and visited the affected sites. He lied. He basically said he was going to help the people there, and he has not yet done so. He straight up just lied to the people in that meeting. He lied on camera. He lied to the American people. And I asked him to stop lying and to provide disaster aid to any state that America has been doing since we become a country.
And then can I just follow up and ask about your reaction to his threats to investigate California for fraud following this Minnesota investigation that was happening?
There is no evidence that California had the same kind of actions that occurred in Minnesota. We should all be against fraud, and I urge every governor of every state, whether it's red or blue or purple, to take action to make sure that there's no fraud.
Thank you. There is obviously a very tight Republican majority right now, and there were a couple of votes before the break where Democrats could have potentially taken a rule or a vote if they had full attendance. I'm just curious if you're doing anything this year to try to improve attendance, or if that's something that you're talking to your caucus about as well.
We'll have strong attendance this week. We have some incredibly important votes. When we have important votes that affect the American public, we expect members to be here. We expect members to be here on time. We've stressed to members, including this morning, the importance of showing up on time, and a 15-minute vote means 15 minutes. I know sometimes that takes a little longer, but we should all adjust our calendars and be here on time. We don't want to lose the opportunity to deliver help to the American public because Republicans are sitting in the chair and they're quick to the gavel. So we're going to make sure that our members understand that, and each and every step of the way, we want to ensure that when we have legislation that matters to the American public, that we're here and we're present. And I'm confident that under Whip Clark's leadership and Leader Jeffries, that our members get that and understand that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If a deal over healthcare subsidies is not reached by the end of January, would you support another government shutdown?
No, Democrats aren't focused on a government shutdown. Republicans shut the government down, the longest shutdown in American history, over 40 days. And I think you saw even Kevin McCarthy, acknowledge that Democrats probably won the shutdown. This wasn't about winning or losing. I don't lose a lot of sleep over what Kevin McCarthy says about what happens in these chambers. But this was about delivering for the American public and letting the American public know that we understand and we see you, that this healthcare crisis is real for you, and we're gonna fight to deliver benefits and help. And that's exactly what we did. And the American people saw that. They saw the shutdown end, and they saw that we put up the votes for a discharge petition to force this vote this week. So I think that's part of promises made, promises kept. But Democrats aren't concerned about, and we aren't talking about a government shutdown. You're seeing Rosa DeLauro speak loudly about the importance of voting yes, and I'll be a yes vote on the minibus this week. And as long as there are collaborative talks between Democrats and Republicans, we want to pass 12 bills. It's up to Republicans, and a lot of Republicans in the Senate have concerns about meeting bipartisan numbers that can get there. You're seeing a revolt in the Rules Committee and from members on the Republican side over these bills, right now. So I think the concern right now is for our Republican colleagues. Do they want to shut down? Because everything they're doing is acting as if they want to shut down and potentially voting against their leadership-supported appropriations bills.
Right before break in December, the DNC announced that it wouldn't be releasing its autopsy report of 2024. Are you concerned about that decision? Do you think that potentially that report could help Democrats win in 26, potentially in 2028? And do you think it's a mistake not to release that report?
I'll leave that up to the DNC and the political folks. That's nothing that we concern ourselves with when we're wearing this hat under the dome. Well, my general belief is more information is always better. And having an opportunity to look in the rearview mirror, helps you moving forward. That said, we're focused on an agenda for the American people in 2026 and winning the election in November 2026 so we can lead and deliver real help to people who need it. And we want to make sure that in 52 weeks, 51 weeks, that we have a new speaker and new leadership here in the House. Last question.
Apologies if you talked about this before, but can we get your quick take on the Greenland conversation? The House GOP leaders were just here kind of minimizing what the White House has said, but the White House has said the military is always an option in their plans to acquire Greenland.
Yeah, it's just completely unhinged what Stephen Miller is allowed to say, but they're saying the quiet part out loud, right? They're threatening a NATO ally in Greenland and Denmark, and I think it's deeply frustrating to us. As much as Speaker Johnson and Republicans want to say that that's not true, that's exactly what the president is saying. That's exactly what his administration is saying. They're leaving the door open to further military action and further regime change in Cuba and Greenland and in other countries in the Western Hemisphere. And so I think the American public is paying attention and should be deeply concerned about what they're hearing out of the White House.
Sure. I served on active duty in the military for 4 years and then additional 21 years in the reserves. I was a JAG. There is absolutely no legal justification whatsoever to use military force against a NATO ally, against Greenland. And if any military member, including the generals on down to enlisted members, if any of them participate in the use of military force against Greenland without congressional authorization, they are following illegal orders. That's simply a fact.
Last one.
Yeah, on the Jeffries discharge petition, given that the Senate has defeated a 3-year extension, have you heard any firm evidence of any progress toward a compromise bill on the ACA extension?
Well, the Senate did defeat a 3-year bill, but it did have bipartisan support, just like we anticipate, our 3-year bill will have bipartisan support. Our obligation, our job is to move this off of the House floor. We're not in the majority. We don't get to decide the timeline, but I want to give Leader Jeffries and it's Lauren Underwood's, bill, and all of the members involved a big note of appreciation for the work that they're doing to get this bill. So we'll get this off of the House floor if the Republicans stay true to their word, and we look forward to passing that in a bipartisan way. We'll get it off of the House floor and we'll send it over to the Senate, and we'll see. They're having, as you all have been reporting, they're having active conversations about what that could look like moving forward. We're aware, we're mindful, we're keeping an eye on what that looks like, and we just want to deliver help for the American public, and we hope that we hope that we can do this with the Affordable Care Act tax credits, reopening the enrollment period, and allowing people who have lapsed in that coverage to join back in would be a huge benefit to our communities and the American people. Thank you.
I know.
Is there somewhere I should put this?
I can take care of it.
But I can give you the
Great, how was yours, Gavin? It never is. I did, yeah, right? You did one, I have one. Yeah, the other kind of flows in, so.
I'll let you know. You going back as well?
I'm going back, yeah. Got a Peter's story about Greenland, so cut to you. No.
It would be a very Peter's
That would be cool, though. I was gonna cut the questions, or clip the question, the Q&A that we get. Okay.
Here, so that I don't have to
Thank you,
put
yeah, I mean, using Metadrone, but, we'll see.
Yeah.
This is not meant to be
Lots of
patronizing, but
sunscreen in
just
your
one card.
future now.
Yeah, it's gonna be on.
See you later. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I've been saying this whole time, I don't know why we didn't use the wagon. Why would I do that? I need that.